It's March 18th. Moses is still delivering his final address to the people, laying out ordinances and laws for daily living that would be established in the new homeland. Some of these laws are quite difficult to digest for modern culture, such as the death penalty for sexual sins and the stoning of defiant and rebellious children. To the West in the 21st century, these seem barbaric. But, as we've seen before, the context in which these laws are given is unique, never before seen in world history. This is not just any nation. This is God's model nation, where purity and justice are paramount. We've seen in previous chapters a zero tolerance for witchcraft and sorcery because those directly contradict the most basic and central tenet of life in Israel, that Yahweh alone is God. There are no other gods, and there can be no recognition of any other would-be God. And God was determined not to allow any such corrosive, toxic influence to spread among the people. Rebellion was just as corrosive. The family, working in conjunction with the priest, was the very enforcement structure of civil law. Issues of corruption within the system would be dealt with by God, but outright rebellion and refusal to adhere to the authority of one's parents was considered a rejection of Levitical authority and a rebellion against God. An outright refusal to submit to God's established order of authority was toxic and would not be tolerated. Along with these difficult ordinances are others that were undoubtedly novel at the time and reflect God's mercy for the neediest. There could be no perversion of justice for the orphan, the widow, or even the alien that lived among them. And each person was commanded to look out for his neighbor. They couldn't ignore misfortune or mistreatment that they had observed. Instead, they had to act on behalf of their neighbor as if their own interest or property was involved. And refusal by the Israelites to show mercy, the kind of mercy that they themselves had been shown, would be an egregious violation, one they would have to answer for. And so while some might look at today's reading and cherry pick out of context what today is considered a controversial commandment and criticize it, the full picture of what was going on in Deuteronomy 21 through 25 is seen in chapter 23, verse 14. For Yahweh your God walks about in the middle of your camp to deliver you and to give up your enemies before you. Therefore your camp shall be holy, that he may not see an unclean thing in you and turn away from you. For God to dwell among them, to fight on their behalf, required holiness. His standards are the same today. Fortunately, for our great benefit, His perfect standard of righteousness has been met in Jesus. And if Jesus is your Lord, His perfect righteousness is applied to you. And this is how God can live among us and fight for us today. His holiness is reflected in our lives by our willingness to adhere to what He is telling us and what He is doing in us. Here's today's application. Do you want to see God working in your life? Then do what you know is right. Stand for truth and justice. Now here's today's prayer.